Greetings, traveler. I am Sir Nox, the teller of tales. Would you like to hear one? Well, this one is called That Time When a 100% Good Aligned Party Murdered the Obvious Story Hook NPC. So this is just kind of a minor horror story, but wanted to share it anyway. The DM had set up a campaign where the central conflict revolved around a demonic meteor that had crashed into the kingdom's coastline. The meteor had ripped open a tear in reality, through which huge numbers of chaotic evil demons were pouring through. The party was mostly composed of good aligned characters, gathered by a DMPC Paladin. The Paladin was mounting an expedition to the coast in order to set up a forward camp and best assess how to deal with the demonic threat. We met at the DMPC Paladin at his monastery while he proceeded to board a ship that would hopefully sneak quietly around the meteor crash site and find a safe place to land on the blighted coast. So we're on the boat. The party is composed of the Paladin DMPC who gathered the party, me, an elf wizard who wants to study a way to close the demonic portals and prevent more suffering, a half-elf druid who wants to reverse the damage done by the demons to the fragile coastline ecosystems, a human ranger whose hometown was destroyed in the initial meteor crash, a half-orc barbarian with a deep hatred of all things demonic because demons had corrupted her tribe. Basically all good guys, or so I thought. So the DM is describing how the ocean is red and frothy with gore, littered with bodies. The corpses are so thick that they're slowing down our boat. I roll perception to see if I notice anything unusual among the corpses. DM tells me that there's a sealed barrel floating upright in the bloody waters. Just as I spot the barrel, the lid opens and an emaciated survivor of the initial demonic attack pops out. My character shouts to the others to come look. I say that we need to throw him a rope and bring him on board. He's clearly in need of help and could probably provide us with some useful intel on the demons. I'm flabbergasted when everyone else in the party immediately disagrees. They decide, with no investigation, that this is obviously a demonic trap. The ranger aims an arrow at the survivor in the barrel and tells him to prove that he's human or else he's going to die. Meanwhile, the DM is describing how the survivor is so sick and weak he can't even hold his head up. The ranger then immediately shoots the man and kills him. My character is horrified. I say to the ranger, "What if he was a citizen of your hometown?" To which the ranger just shrugs and said, he was probably going to die anyway. The druid says that the survivor was probably corrupted and it was safer to just kill him rather than bring him on the boat. The half-orc agrees. DMPC Paladin doesn't say a word and we just continue on our journey. All these characters are supposed to be lawful or neutral good, but they just murdered an innocent and shrugged it off like it was NBD. No big deal. Not only an innocent, but what was obviously a plot hook NPC. The campaign was decently okay before it ended up collapsing due to scheduling issues, but it was full of moments like that where the party of good guys immediately defaulted to murder in every situation rather than trying to investigate or talk, which lead to us missing out on a lot of plot threads and RP that the DM told us about later, and my character got stereotyped as a buzzkill for disapproving of the murder. Well, that concludes that tale. I have another if you'd like to hear it. It is called Power Gamer Excels in Combat, Rage Quits Because He Wasn't Awesome Enough. This isn't nearly as bad as most of the stories I read on here, but I'm feeling the need to vent. I started a new Curse of Strahd campaign recently on Roll20. One of the players, a fighter, had a bit of a min-max attitude, but I didn't think much of it. I run my games professionally as a deterrent against bad behavior, and I don't normally have a problem with players who are a bit power gamey. The ones I play with are good at dividing the line between their builds and their character while playing. The guy seemed to be familiar with the module. He kept saying things to the other players like, "You want to play a drow? That's going to be hard to get away with in Barovia." I reassured the whole group that I was fine with the character choices and didn't pay much heed to what, in retrospect, is an obvious red flag. Fighter took Poliam, master with a spear and shield, and the dueling fighter style at level 1. Powerful, but built towards an almost Spartan flavor, so I was fine with allowing the choice. He also wanted to eventually take the Brute subclass. Normally I avoid archived UA, but after looking it over, I wasn't too worried about balance. In my session 0, I explained that when I build encounters, I like to keep it challenging enough for the players without outright killing them, without having to save them via DM fiat. not. I also expressed in several different places, both verbal and written, that my first and most important rule is to always prioritize the other players' fun over your own. We get to the session and everything seems to be going fine. I like to start campaigns in media res with the players stumbling into a combat by chance that involves them rescuing the initial quest giver. Combat goes well and we move on to more RP setting. That's when I get a private message.
Why are you changing things for no reason?
I've heard of this, but didn't think I would ever run into it. After asking for clarification, the response is,
I've been running this game long enough to know that wolves have 11 HP.
I explained to the player that 11 is just the average of its hit dice and that they were well within the stat block. He asked if I was pumping up the HP because he made a character that could hit hard, and I told him no, thinking that the matter was settled for now, with the knowledge that there should be a discussion after the session. Eventually, we made it to the opening dungeon and another combat. I chose a more cinematic introduction to said combat rather than rolling for initiative first, and apparently that was too much. Vitus states that he doesn't think that he is a good fit for the campaign. Not a big issue because the rules are not being followed, and it's unfair. The other players are confused, which begins a discussion over whether there is even a standard rule that has to be followed and whether the players should be thinking about the stat blocks even if they already know them. Vitus starts shouting about how unfair I've been to him by making him less effective and immediately leaves everything. The initial combat was against 4 enemies and he easily took out 2, dealing most of the damage to a third, but apparently I made him less effective by not letting him one-shot everything. Well, that concludes that tale. I have another if you'd like to hear it. This one is called Party Member Identifies as Winona Ryder and Attacks Me. Roll20 can be an interesting place to find games. I've had decent luck in Roll20 as a DM for a large, long-running West Marches campaign by just being picky and willing to kick bad eggs out early if there are problems. But as a player, the option of being picky and curating the experience is not present. So at least as of a few years ago, my experience as a role player looking for a campaign on Roll20 looked a bit like this. Step 1. Find an interesting campaign. Step 2. Apply to said campaign with a lengthy, detailed application. Step 3. Typically at this point, I'd be kicked back to Step 1 due to not getting into the campaign, but sometimes I would get in. Happy day! In the small percentage of cases, I'd proceed to Step 4. Step 4. The game never happens because half the people don't show up. This happened an astonishing number of times, but some rare few campaigns that I apply to that proceed to accept me and that I show up for actually do happen. In these miraculous instances, I move to Step 5. Step 5. The campaign has one session and then collapses. On very rare occasion, Step 5 would instead be, I find myself in a fun campaign with sane human beings who also enjoy my hobby, but not often. The following story is a tale of the examples of me joining a campaign and bouncing off of it. I can't say for certain it died after the first session like so many other Roll20 campaigns, but at very least I bailed on it. So the DM on this campaign seemed like an okay enough guy at first. He had a nice world map and posted a bunch of details on the world in the campaign form outlining the setting and its unusual stance on magic. Basically, if you were an arcane caster, you were going to be burned at the stake, and if you were a non-cleric or paladin of the dominant religion or a druid, you weren't in quite that much trouble, but you were eyed with suspicion and would need to be careful as some overzealous religious nuts might still want to kill you. The campaign started at level 10. I decided to roll up a moon druid, because it seems safer than rolling up a wizard in this theocratic dystopia. I don't remember what name I had. I'm just going to call my character Druid McTreehugs. The rest of the party was a fighter, Bob, a paladin, Steve, and a warlock, Winona Ryder. The session begins with us meeting outside of a city that has called for aid because it is about to be besieged. My character shows up. Apparently, this group already knew each other out of the campaign or had a session 0 where the characters all met, because the only one needing introductions was me. Hi guys, are you here to protect generic fantasy town too? I'm Druid McTreehugs, says I.
Are you a witch?
Asks Bob the fighter immediately. What? No, I'm a healer. "And why do you think I'm a witch?" I replied.
Do you do magic?
Bob demanded. "Some, but only the nice kind," I said. "Totally a lie. I'm a bit of a munchkin, and many druid attack tactics are not at all nice."
I got my eye on you,
said Bob.
"Druids are stupid,"
said the male voice of the warlock over Discord. His Discord image and name are Winona Ryder. I have no effing idea what to say to this one, so I'm just don't. No one else comments. The DM continues. He describes how we have a long journey ahead of us to get to a generic fantasy village to save it. As we set off as a group and do some fairly typical role-playing for a few minutes, it seems like a fairly standard D&D group. That doesn't last. On the trail, my druid solves our food situation by summoning delicious good berries. This draws the ire of Bob the fighter and Winona Ryder the warlock.
"Are you sure you aren't a witch?"
Bob demands.
"I think he's a witch,"
says Winona Ryder.
"We have to get him a witch test,"
Bob says, drawing his sword. "Do you consent to taking the witch test willingly?"
"If he's a witch, he must be burned,"
agreed the paladin.
"Does your dad know you're stupid, druid?"
asks Winona Ryder. I'm not even sure if that one is directed at me or my character, but I don't reply to it if no one else says anything. I'm kind of confused at this point. I expected NPCs to be potentially hostile to a druid based on the campaign information, but I didn't expect a party member to be drawing steel over effing berries, egged on by a homophobic warlock. And for the record, I'm straight and have no idea what the heck this dude is on about. At this point, I'm getting annoyed, and as it looks a lot like an initiative is about to be rolled, and I do not handle it with poise and calm, I handled it like a munchkin who knows for a fact I could take on the rest of the party by myself if it came to PvP. Nothing against people who don't optimize, but the sheets are public, and at this point, I glance at their sheets and note that these characters trying to bully mine are what might be charitably called by an optimizer subpar. Nope, not going to take your test. I'm a druid, I do nature magic. Don't like that? Too bad. Oh look, magic! And I summon 16 giant poisonous snakes. So it's at that point that initiative is rolled. The DM, for his part, seems to stay entirely neutral. He doesn't care about the other characters threatening mine, he doesn't care about the homophobic slurs, and he doesn't care that my character is winding up a haymaker to hit back. Or that is how it appears. I win initiative, and so do my snakes. I am aware that at this point things have gone off the rails, and it is not entirely likely my character is going to get along with this group. But the munchkin in me is pleased to see that I am almost certain to take that smug Winona Ryder warlock down. I transform into an elemental, give my snakes their orders, and earth glide downward. No reason to stay exposed with my pets can do the work, right? My snakes approach Winona Ryder to attack. 16 giant poisonous snakes against someone with AC 16. This should be very messy. My snakes will hit a bit better than half the time, dealing heavy damage, and he'll be lucky to survive this onslaught.
"I Eldritch Blast each snake as it approaches,"
declares Winona Ryder. He proceeded to, with the DM letting him, do a full volley of 3 beams at each snake as an opportunity attack. It is at this point I think my brain broke a little, because everything about that is wrong from a rules perspective. It's like an onion of rules stupidity. There are so many layers. I don't even know where to begin here. You don't get an opportunity attack because something approaches you unless you have a feat or class feature that says so. And there are no such warlock abilities, but even if there were, you only have one reaction, so he could do this to, at most, 1 snake. But even if he could react to someone attacking him in melee and had infinite reactions, snakes have a 10-foot range. He can do it at any time someone attacks him? Edit. Oh, also just remembered, you don't get 3 beams with Eldritch Blast until 11. We were 10. I point out at this point that basically everything here is wrong, and there are no rules anywhere that allow anything even remotely like this, and the DM states,
"We do things a bit differently."
No crap. Would have been nice to have this different rules available to everyone. So 16 snakes all die before they get to attack, and my druid elemental pops his head up a ways off on his next turn. So wait, you guys are just cool with that dude sending out magic death beams, but you're hassling me over berries, I ask? A mix between in character and out of character. No reply. At this point, the DM intervenes and has a messenger from Generic Fantasy Town rush up and inform us that Generic Fantasy Town needs our help. The party stops fighting. I kind of check out with my elemental lagging a bit behind in case these idiots attack me again. I'm pretty much done at this point. I stay just long enough to hear Winona Ryder convincing a child in generic fantasy town to drink a vial of black liquid to induct them into the cult of Cthulhu. At this point, I facepalm in real life, disconnect from the server, and wonder why I just wasted hours of my life on this crap. Well, that concludes all our tales for today. If you enjoyed, please don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. If you'd like to hear more tales, come back and I shall tell you one. If you'd like to hear some more right now, perhaps watch another video. There's a few off to the side.